Velete, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why is it so easy for us as Black people to fight each other, but so hard for us to unite? Have you ever wondered why someone from the Caribbean can look at a person from Africa and feel distant? Or why an African on the continent can look at a person in the diaspora and see a stranger? This is not a coincidence. This is a deliberate Asian strategy that is still being played out today on a global stage. Look at what is happening between Europe and the Caribbean right now. The European Union has issued an ultimatum to the Caribbean nations like Antigua, Dominica, and then the rest. They said, if you do not stop selling your citizenship and granting passport to Africans, we are going to cancel your visa-free access to Europe. Why are they doing this? On the surface, they talk about financial security, background checks, and regulations, but let us look at the deeper, dirtier reality behind this policy. The ultimate goal of the global system has always been to make sure Africans and the African diaspora are constantly fighting among themselves. The moment we are distracted, division becomes their greatest weapon. For centuries, the system was designed to divide us into small, angry groups. They want the person in the Caribbean to say, my ancestors were here. I have nothing to do with Africa. I am different. They want the person on the African continent to say, those people left long ago. They are not real Africans. They want us arguing over identity, over who is more authentic, over who suffered more, and over minor cultural differences. Why? Because as long as we are busy tearing each other apart, we cannot see what they are doing to us. When you are busy fighting your own brother over crumbs, you do not look up to see the person who is stealing the whole loaf of bread. Division keeps us blind. Division keeps us weak. While we are distracted by internal arguments and regional hatred, foreign powers step in, extract our resources, dictate our laws, and control our movements across the world. Think about how this division directly benefits them financially. Right now, African citizens face the highest visa rejection rate in the entire world from European embassies. Every year, millions of Africans spend hundreds of thousands applying for visas to study, trade, or visit family. When the European embassy rejects the application, they keep all the money. They make hundreds of millions of dollars every single year just off refusing Africans. It is a multi-million-dollar industry built on telling Black people no. Now, look at what happens when a Caribbean country opens its doors to an African business person buys a Caribbean passport legally for $200,000. Sadly, that African can travel to over 140 countries without applying for a European visa. That terrifies the system for two reasons. First, it takes away their money machine. They no longer get to take the non-refundable visa fees from that African. Second, and most importantly, it brings the family together. When an African from Nigeria or Ghana gets a passport from Grenada or Lucia, they do not just travel to Europe. They go to the Caribbean. They meet their brothers and sisters in the West Indies. They start talking. They realize that the same music, the same food, the same spiritual reading, and the same struggles exist both sides of the Atlantic. They realize they are not enemies. They are family that was separated by force. The moment an African man and a Caribbean woman meet, fall in love, marry, build a business, and have children, a physical and financial bridge is created between Africa and the diaspora. The psychological division breaks down. And that is what the old colonial powers do not want the most. They do not want us to love each other. They don't want us to cooperate. They want us to stay in a constant state of suspicion and conflict. They prefer a world where Caribbean nations depend on European tourists and European loans. They prefer a world where African nations depend on foreign aid, what economist Dr. Dambisa called dead aid, a system that keeps African governments begging on their knees instead of standing on their own feet. When Europe tells the Caribbean, stop giving passports to Africans or we will cut you off, they are not enforcing security. They are enforcing separation. They are telling Caribbean leaders, you must keep your distance from Africa. If you try to unite with your own people, we will punish you. It is the same old strategy, divide and rule. If they keep us isolated in small, weak pockets, they can control us forever. If an African billionaire like Aliko Dangote needs dozens of visas just to move around inside Africa, you can see how deeply the system was built to keep us trapped in boxes. The European ultimatum to the Caribbean is not just a policy about passports. It is a direct attack on Pan-African unity. It is a deliberate move to keep the global black family scattered, suspicious, and broke. The question we must ask ourselves is simple. How long are we going to keep playing their game? How long are we going to let them keep us fighting each other while they profit of our division? The day we stop looking at each other as strangers and start standing together as one global family, the power of these artificial borders will fall apart. They make millions of monies from Africa, but the moment the Caribbean decided to make this same money so they can depend on themselves without depending on them, it becomes a problem. They see it to be financial risk. They see it to be security risk. They keep Africans divided by all means because our unity is always a problem to them. And that is why they make sure they continue to keep in policies so we continue to be seen ourselves divided, because people these days, our own kind, believe that they are not African descent. Africans are sitting in the continent, seeing their brothers not to be one of them. This is how they have created and molded the African, and this is benefiting them for all these years. The moment the African decides to look for other means to generate income without depending on them, it becomes a threat to them. And for how long will we continue to be singing their songs and dancing their songs? Must we say because of the little aid we get, we will not stand up for ourselves? We will not stand up for our sovereignty? We wouldn't defend ourselves? We wouldn't stand on our feet? Must we continue to be begging? Must we continue to be dividing ourselves? We need to unite. That is why always on my platform, I talk about the African unity. Until we unite as a people, we can never be free. They have succeeded in making sure the African never sees him or herself to be one. They do not want us in their countries. They do not also want us to unite. When the African is trying to enter into their countries, we are sent off. And the moment the African now decides to say, the time has come for us to share the wealth among ourselves, transfer the wealth to our own selves, it becomes a problem. So what they want the African to be is to continue to be developed, to continue to be under their mercy, that they can do anything to us. The African must never rise up. The African must never look for alternatives to share our money among ourselves. The moment we do that, it becomes a problem. The African must continue to be under perpetual poverty, bondage, where they decide the terms and conditions. They rule us as if we are still under their slavery. Even though we claim we are free, we are not free. That's why we are seeing all sort of things happening in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, because the moment the African decides to do otherwise in order to stand up on his or her feet, it becomes a problem to these people. They will find means and ways to tear us apart. But why should we allow that to continue to happen? The time has come for the African to unite. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world and in the Caribbean.